Welcome to English with Zenko Master. Get ready to learn something new today.
I did not mean to escape the world. I only wanted some silence. I wanted space and time where no one needed me to smile or answer questions. That Tuesday was quiet and gray, like many other days, but something felt heavier. I called in sick even though I was not really sick. I stayed in bed and looked at the ceiling for a long time. I did not cry and I did not sleep. I only stayed still. I felt like I had nothing left to give. That was when I opened the app again. It had been on my phone for weeks. I downloaded it one night when I could not sleep. The app was called Dreamport. The description said it could build a world based on your thoughts. It sounded like a silly idea, but that day I was too tired to care. I wanted to feel something different. Anything. The screen turned blue and soft music started to play. A message appeared. It asked, "What does peace look like to you?" I stared at the words for a moment. Then I typed, "A small house by the sea, warm light, no noise, just me." The screen blinked. Then my phone shook in my hand. I closed my eyes just for a second. When I opened them again, I was no longer in my bedroom. I was standing on sand. The sea moved slowly in front of me. Behind me was a small wooden house with a yellow door. The air smelled like salt. I felt warm and calm. I was not scared. I did not even feel confused. It felt right. I walked to the house and opened the door. Inside, the light was soft. There was a chair near the window and a table with a book on it. A kettle was singing in the kitchen. Everything looked simple but beautiful. The book had my name written on the first page. I sat in the chair and felt something I had not felt in months. I felt safe. I stayed there until I was too tired to keep my eyes open. When I woke up, I was back in my bed. My phone was still in my hand. The app was closed. I did not understand what had happened. Maybe it was a dream. Maybe I had fallen asleep. But it did not feel like a dream. It felt more real than anything else. The next day, I opened the app again. This time, it did not ask me any questions. It just took me back. The beach was the same. The house was waiting. I went inside and found everything as I left it. The blanket on the couch, the book on the table, the soft light in the room. Each time I visited, the world felt deeper, more complete. One day, a cat was sitting on the porch. I picked her up and named her Misty. I started spending more time in the app. I forgot to answer messages. I skipped meals. I told my manager I needed a break. I said I was not feeling well. That was not a lie. I was not okay, but I also did not want to explain. Dreamport gave me a place where I did not need to explain anything. In that world, I was not tired. I was not lonely. The sea was always calm. The house was always warm. I spent hours walking along the shore. I watched the sun rise and fall. Sometimes I found small surprises. A flower I had never seen before, a note left in the book. The app seemed to understand me in ways no one else did. One evening, I found someone sitting near the rocks. She looked about my age, with soft hair and quiet eyes. I had never seen anyone else in the world before. I sat beside her. She smiled and said she lived nearby. We talked like old friends, even though we had never met. Her name was Isla. She told me she liked the sea too. She said it made her feel calm. I said the same. After that day, Isla became part of the world. She was always there when I came back. We walked together. We watched the waves. We shared memories that I could not explain. She told me stories, and I listened. I asked her once if she remembered anything before she came to the beach. She said she did not. She said this place was the only home she knew. In real life, I was disappearing. I did not answer calls. I did not check my email. I stopped going outside. My apartment was messy. I forgot to buy food. I did not care. Dreamport became my home. Isla became my closest friend. The sea became my comfort. I told myself I would stop soon. I would return to normal life after a few more visits. But I knew I was lying. I did not want to leave. In the fake world, I felt whole. In the real world, I felt like a shadow. Then one day, the world started to change. The sky was darker. The waves were louder. The wind felt cold. Isla looked worried. She said she felt something was wrong. I asked the app what was happening, but there was no answer. That night, I had trouble sleeping. My head hurt. My body felt heavy. I tried to rest, but I only wanted to go back. When I returned, the beach was empty. Isla was not there. The house was locked. The sea looked angry. I called her name, but there was no answer. I waited for hours. I sat in the sand until it was dark. I felt something I had not felt since the beginning. I felt afraid. I looked at the app again. It still worked. But the message on the screen had changed. It said, "You stayed too long." I turned off my phone and sat on the floor of my bedroom. I had not eaten in 2 days. My skin was pale. My eyes were red. I looked in the mirror and saw someone I did not know. The world I had built had started to fall apart. But the real world no longer felt like mine either. And that was when I finally asked myself the question I had been avoiding. If I could not live in the real world and could no longer stay in the fake one, where did I belong? Before I share the rest of my story, I need to know, where are you listening from? Knowing someone hears me, understands me, gives me strength. The next morning, I opened the app with shaking hands. I didn't know what I expected. I just wanted to see Isla again. I needed to know she was okay. But the screen stayed black longer than usual. Then, slowly, the beach appeared. It looked different. The sky was red, the sea was wild, and the wind was cold. I saw Isla standing far away near the water. I ran toward her and called her name. She turned around, but her eyes looked sad. "You weren't supposed to stay this long," she said. I tried to explain. I told her I felt safe here. I told her I didn't want to leave. She shook her head. "This place is for rest," she said. "Not for hiding." Her voice was soft, but it hurt. I wanted to ask her to stay with me. I wanted to fix everything. But before I could speak, she stepped back. The waves touched her feet. She looked at me and said, "You have to choose now. This world or the real one. You can't keep walking between them." I stood still. I didn't know what to say. I looked at the house. It was falling apart. The sand was turning dark. Everything felt wrong. I turned back, but Isla was fading. I reached out, but she was gone. I dropped to my knees in the sand. I cried for the first time in weeks. I cried because I missed her. I cried because I didn't know who I was anymore. I stayed there until the sea grew quiet again. I walked to the house. The door was open now. Inside, the light was dim. The book was still on the table. I picked it up and wrote one line. "I want to come back when I'm ready." Then I closed my eyes. When I opened them, I was back in my room. It was morning. The sun was shining through the window. I felt cold and tired, but something inside me had changed. I stood up slowly and opened the window. The air smelled fresh and real. That day, I didn't open Dreamport. I didn't even look at it. I cleaned my room. I made tea. I sat in the sunlight. It was strange. Everything felt too bright and too loud. But I stayed. I didn't run away. I cooked a real meal. I called my sister and told her I was okay. I didn't say much. She didn't ask for details. She just said, "I'm here." That was enough. The next day, I wrote about everything. I wrote about the beach, the house, the sea, and Isla. I wrote about the calm and the fear. I didn't care if it made sense. I just needed to get it out. Writing helped me see clearly. I had gone to that world because I was tired. I had stayed because I was scared. But in the end, I had come back. I was proud of that. The real world was still hard. I still felt lonely. I still had days when I wanted to escape, but I didn't. Instead, I took short walks outside. I smiled at people. I watched birds in the trees. I started reading books again. Simple books, easy to follow. Some days were good, some were not. But every day, I chose to stay. Sometimes I opened Dreamport just to look at the icon. I never tapped it. I just stared and remembered. I thought about Isla's smile. I thought about the sound of the sea. I thought about the quiet peace that helped me rest. I didn't hate that world. I was thankful for it. But I knew now it wasn't my home. A few weeks later, I returned to work part-time. It was strange at first. I moved slowly and spoke softly. People didn't ask many questions. They just let me work. That was fine with me. I took breaks. I ate lunch in the park. I listened to the wind in the trees. I kept a notebook in my bag and wrote whenever I felt lost. One afternoon, I walked to the real beach near my town. It was nothing like Dreamport. The sand was rough. The waves were loud. There were people everywhere. But I stood there for a long time, just watching. The wind touched my face. The smell of salt filled the air. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And I was still here. On a bench near the sea, I saw a woman sitting alone. She looked tired. Her eyes were fixed on the horizon. I sat down a few feet away. We didn't talk. We just sat in silence. After some time, she got up and walked away. I stayed. That small moment made me feel something. I wasn't the only one who had felt lost. I began to return to that bench often. Sometimes I sat with my notebook. Sometimes I just watched the sea. Each time I felt more present. I didn't need to disappear anymore. I didn't need a perfect world. I just needed space to breathe. I wrote letters I never sent. I cleaned my apartment little by little. I started helping at the library on Saturdays. I read to children. Their laughter reminded me of Misty, the cat from Dreamport, and the warmth of the house. But it didn't make me sad. It made me smile. I laughed one day while reading a story to a group of kids. It was a small laugh, but it felt big inside me. It was the first real laugh in months. A coworker smiled and said, "It's good to see you back." I nodded. I didn't say anything, but I felt it too. Some evenings, I still miss Dreamport. I miss the soft light, the sea, Isla's voice, but I don't go back. Not because I'm afraid, but because I've learned something. Healing isn't in running away. It's in staying, in living, in feeling the pain and moving through it. And slowly, I was learning how to live again. One rainy morning, I woke up before my alarm. The sky outside was still dark, and everything felt quiet. I made a cup of tea and sat by the window. My phone was on the table. I looked at the Dreamport app. My finger moved toward it but stopped. I didn't want to open it. I just wanted to remember. I thought about Isla. I thought about the sea and the house with the yellow door. I missed those things. I missed the calm, the warmth, and the soft sound of waves. But I didn't feel the same need to go back. I just missed them like someone misses a good memory. That world helped me when I needed it. But now, it felt like a chapter I had already read. I picked up my notebook and started to write. I wrote everything I could remember. I wrote about the first time I saw the sea in that world. I wrote about Misty, the little cat who kept me company. I wrote about the book with my name in it and the light in the kitchen. I wrote about Ela, her voice, her quiet smile, her words. This place is for healing, not hiding. I wrote that sentence many times. I didn't want to forget it. After I finished writing, I looked outside. People were walking with umbrellas. Cars moved slowly on the wet road. It was just another ordinary day. But to me, it felt different. Because I had changed. I was learning to live in this world again. In the weeks that followed, I kept doing small things. I cleaned my kitchen. I opened the windows in the morning. I made my bed each day. I didn't do anything big, but I stayed with my feelings, even when they were hard. I started going to a support group at the community center. We sat in a circle and talked. Everyone there had been through something. We didn't judge each other. We just listened. And that helped more than I expected. One afternoon, I met a woman at the library. She was looking for a book about dreams. I helped her find it. We started talking. She had kind eyes and a soft voice. Her name was Mara. We sat on a bench outside and kept talking. We talked about books, about feelings, about how sometimes it's hard to be okay. I didn't tell her everything, but I told her enough. She nodded and said, "I understand." That was all I needed. Mara and I met again a few days later. Then again after that. We didn't become best friends right away, but I felt something safe with her. We took walks. We shared coffee. We sat in silence without needing to speak. I didn't feel like I had to pretend. And that was new for me. One evening, we walked to the beach together. Not the Dreamport beach. The real one. The wind was cold and the waves were wild, but it felt honest. We sat on the sand and watched the sky turn orange. Mara asked me if I had ever wanted to run away from life. I laughed a little. "Yes," I said. "I did. I even found a place to hide." She looked at me, curious. I didn't say more. I just smiled. That night, I finally deleted Dreamport from my phone. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel scared. I just knew I didn't need it anymore. I had what I needed now. I had air. I had space. I had people who saw me. And I had myself. Sometimes I still think about that other world. I remember Isla's voice. I remember the book and the warm light in the kitchen. I remember walking barefoot on the beach. But I don't wish to return. I carry those memories with me, like a soft blanket I can hold in my mind when I need comfort. Now, when I see someone who looks tired or lost, I try to offer them what I once needed. Not advice, not answers, just presence, just kindness. Sometimes I sit next to them without saying a word. Just being there is enough. I've started writing again, not just about Dreamport, but about real life, about healing, about being human. I send short letters to people in my support group. I leave notes in library books for strangers to find. "You're not alone," I write. Or, It's okay to rest. Small words, but they matter. One day, I walked into a bookstore and saw a small book with a blue cover. On the back it said, "What does peace look like to you?" I stood there for a long time, just staring at the words. I didn't buy the book. I didn't need to. The answer was already inside me. Healing isn't a perfect line. It goes up and down. Some days I feel strong. Some days I feel small. But every day I choose to stay. I choose to try. I choose to live. I don't know what happened to Isla. Maybe she was a part of me. Maybe she was a guide. Maybe she was just a dream. But I thank her. Because of her, I came back to myself. And now when I sit by the sea, the real sea, I feel everything. The wind, the salt, the sound of the waves. It's not always calm. It's not always beautiful. But it's real. And so am I. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share. More emotional and inspiring stories are coming soon.